In any presentation that you do, you've got to be asking yourself, who's who in the zoo? And what I mean by that is who's in the room. Now, when we go and pitch to executives, we make sure that we LinkedIn, we Google them first. We know exactly who they are, what they've done, and what their experiences are. If they're working in a bank right now, it doesn't mean that they've worked in a bank their whole life. They might have worked in telecoms. So it means that I can use telecom examples and they'll know what I'm talking about. So they might be Monash graduates. So drawing upon those sort of experiences, know who's in the room, know who has experience in your team as well. So who have you got there from your team who can answer those really tough questions in each of the different areas? So when you're going into a presentation, before you think about what you're going to say and what you're going to do, think about how you're going to set up the space. What's it going to look like? If it's going to be something that's interactive, tables and chairs where people are sitting behind them, they're not going to work as well as an open space. You would have seen already in terms of the way we set up the classrooms that they are different depending on different subjects and different needs of the classrooms. So look at those sort of experiences and take those into your presentations and go, well, how can I do this? How can I set up the space to be exactly what I want? If it is going to be a completely professional presentation where I need people to take notes, do I need to give them the notepad and the pen in front of them? So all those sort of things. Think about where you are standing or sitting. If you're going to sit, you've got to be making sure that that's the sort of conversation that you want to have, that it becomes more conversational than presentational. So think about those sort of things in terms of how you want to get your message across. Where are you going to be sitting? If you're sitting at the head of the table, you're automatically giving yourself power. If you're sitting amongst in the middle, you're sitting there among the people and being able to talk to them left and right with them. Try not to, if you're having a meeting as such, having all of you on one side and all of the other clients or all of the other team on the other. That way it does feel a little bit confrontational. Make sure you spread between them. So think about where your team's sitting as well. So I talked about just then, but also in a presentation. Where are they going to be sitting to be able to acknowledge what you're saying, to be able to react to what the audience is saying, and be able to know where they are, making sure you have a good understanding of where you're working as a team. What notes are you going to have? Now, this is a tough one because in our generation, we understand that we have notes on our phones, and that's fine. I understand that. You understand that. The older generation don't. What does that mean to them? Is that a barrier? A note card and an iPhone are roughly the same size, but they're seen as very, very different things. So think about that when you're going to present. Again, who's who in the zoo? Who's your audience? Are you going to have a heap of notes in front of you? Are you going to use the presenter view in PowerPoint to be able to have those notes? Or are you going to be able to wing it? Are you projecting slides? If you are, make sure you know how the projector works. Make sure they have a projector and you've got a good idea in terms of being able to use a clicker or a mouse in front of you. Those sort of things are big things when you're walking into a room. You've only got a couple of minutes. You want to try and know what you're doing beforehand. So if it's a room you haven't used before, try and get there a day or so earlier to check it out. If you're coming in and presenting for the first time in a fresh environment, right in front of clients or right in front of a new manager or anything like that, use that time where you're setting up to just feel confident in what you're doing, and don't be afraid to ask questions about, I haven't used this system before. Have you? Can you show me around? What handouts are you going to have? I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but think about the sort of handouts, think about the size of the handouts in what people need to see and what information you need to give them. And finally, are you going to move? This links back to the sitting and standing and how you set up your room. Are you going to move around and engage with people? Are you going to talk to them? Are you going to have that one-on-one experience, or are you going to be separated from them? I'm a person who naturally needs to pace around to feel comfortable in what I'm saying and know what I'm going to say. So for me, I always set up a room where I'm able to walk around, unless it is a client meeting where I want to be in amongst the people. So think about what suits you first. The other thing on this slide is breathing. Now, this is something that your Scrum leaders are going to talk about, but I want you to just be thinking about your own breathing when you're presenting. If you've got shallow breaths like that, automatically you're going to get a little bit more stressed. You're not getting as much oxygen around the body, and you're going to be tensing up and tight. In terms of breathing, if you've been a musician, if you've been any sort of performer, or if you've been a high-level sports player, you'll understand how we use our diaphragm and how we breathe. If you haven't done these things, don't worry, you're going to learn. So think about how you're breathing right now, whether you're having those deep breaths in and deep breaths out. And think about that in terms of presentations. If you practice this now, it makes it much easier when you get to a presentation.